Alright guys, it's Colton, Lindsay here, coming live again. I don't really know what is going on, but we're going to try it round 2 with Mike Hyde. Try and get this sound figured out. It's something to do with Facebook recently, so hopefully we'll work through it. While you're hopping on, make sure to put an L in the comments below if you're a live watcher, and R if you're a replayer. And make sure to turn on your notification. So we are, David says, nothing beats a failure but another try. Ain't that the truth? So Mike's gonna come on. Let's see if we can get this one to work now.
How's that, bud?
Let's see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome, man. Perfect. How about you guys watching in live? Can you guys hear it? Let's make sure. I mean, this is much better on my end. It's amazing. It says it's amazing. Oh, he's talking about the Prospecting Summit. Scoot over just a little bit so I can see you in the picture, though, Mike. There you are. Awesome. Perfect. So as we get going today, gang, make sure you guys put an L in the comments down below if you're watching live, and R if you're a replayer. And I just want to give a shout out to David. He was at our Prospecting Summit last week. He said it was one of the most impactful events of his entire real estate career. So put a yes, David, in the comments down below if I'm not making that up. What we're going to be talking today is with Mike, who I don't know really well. I know you're in the Prospecting Alliance. I just found out that you're in business with a good friend of mine in Phoenix. I had no idea you worked for the same company. His name is Kevin Lingen. So you're with BTG Real Estate, correct?
Yep.
Cool. And so you're in Missoula, Montana? Is that, am I making this?
Yep, Missoula, Montana, man.
All right, man. Dude, the only place I know in Montana is Dillon, Montana. So
Love Dillon.
Dillon's awesome. They got a sweet Dairy Queen there, fantastic Taco John's, and then I think they have King's there or something like that too. So it's a big town. Okay. All right, guys, here's what I need you guys to do. I want to read this. David said, I'm in the top 1%. My eight-year career was the best training he's ever been to. Love to hear that. Awesome, man. So here's what I need you guys to do is turn on your notifications, check out prospectingalliance.com, and also check out fearlessagent.com. But let's get into this, Mike. Mike, within 90 seconds or less, give a background of where you started and where you're at today with your life and real estate career. And I know you said you're open to it. I want to really focus a little bit of this conversation on not necessarily the tragedy that I know you went through, because I couldn't even imagine what you went through, but really how you dealt with the pain of what you went through. Fair enough?
Sounds good.
Cool, man.
So my name's Mike Hyde. I was born in Salt Lake City, moved to Missoula, Montana in '94. I've been in sales my whole life. Opened my first car lot when I was 19. Fought cancer with my son, started our nonprofit, the Hyde Foundation, in 2011, and I hopped into real estate in 2015 with Keller Williams, and the rest is history, man.
Cool, man. So let's go back up. You were born in Salt Lake City. You took off to Montana, and what made you think, hey, 19 years old, I'm going to get into the car business? Why did you start that?
You know, my dad owned a diesel shop, and so I grew up working on trucks with him. My uncle was a repo guy down in Salt Lake City, actually. And so I used to go down there on holidays, help him repo cars. And I started looking at what the notes on the cars were. And I was like, man, I could just buy these and flip them up in Montana. And so I started doing that. And I just really loved the hustle of grabbing something at a certain price, fixing it up a little bit, and selling it for a little more money. And so I really got into it early 2000s through 2004 before my first son was born. It was a challenging time in the auto industry. In '03, you were competing against new car dealerships, 0% financing. And so you had to be really creative. Hopped out of it for a little bit and then got right back. I like the idea of sales because you can change your whole month in one day. You know, versus like you're working that 9 to 5, you know, you're getting this guaranteed, you know, weekly or bi-weekly check. And in sales, I know I can go in and make more than most of my friends were making all month long in one good transaction. And so every day gives you the ability to change your life. And that's what I love about sales.
Awesome. How long did you do car sales for?
I've been doing car sales since 2003, and I got out of it in 2015 all the way.
Okay, so 2003 to 2015. So you were 19 when you started. How old were you when you got out of it?
You know, when I got out of it, when I shut down my lot was right before my son got sick in 2010. And that's when I shut down having like an actual dealership. I still flip cars on the side, you know, just throw it on Craigslist or on Facebook and sell it on the side. And I did that all the way until 2015.
Is that all you did for income from 2010 to 2015?
Yep, I was basically we were mostly just fighting cancer. 2010, we spent roughly 10 months at Primary Children's there in Salt Lake City with my son. So I didn't do much of any work that year. 2011, we got home, started getting back to a normal lifestyle. My son relapsed. We ended up going to California from, it was pretty much right before Thanksgiving till about February 1st of 2012. We were down in Loma Linda, California, living in a Ronald McDonald house. So it was challenging to work and make an income during that time. And that's why just having like a car on the internet to sell could change your whole month, you know? And so I really utilized that aspect of just being able to flip cars on the side to sustain my family. We kept a really low overhead. And 2012, when my son passed away, we lost our house, we lost our cars, we lost him, of course. And so it was really just a matter of being able to hit rock bottom all the way completely and do your best to regain some sort of normalcy for the healthy kids that we had and figure out like what life was going to be next for the Hydes.
Well, in 2000, so sorry for their loss as well. I couldn't even imagine being a parent, how to process that. But 2011, if I remember right, 2011, 2012 was a horrible time to be in the car business as well. That was when they were doing junkers for cars or something like that. That was when, you know.
That was 08, 09, junkers for cars. And it was tough, man. But my philosophy on it was I didn't want to sell new cars anyways. Yeah. I always like being in pre-owned sales because that's where you could really make more profit. And being in the car business, having my own lot, I like selling cars in that $7,000 to $10,000 price range, which the cash for clunkers really set you back because that was a lot of the cars that should have been going to the auction block. What I would do is I'd fly down to Salt Lake on a Tuesday. I'd go to Brazier's Auto Auction, and then on Wednesday I'd go out to Manheim over there in North Salt Lake, and then I would drive, a car home and send the rest back on a truck. And so it was real challenging in 09 going into 2010 because there wasn't a lot of inventory. All the new dealerships were keeping their trade-ins. So it was definitely challenging. And being in sales where you got to keep your mindset strong anyways, and you can't allow these other factors to come in and change your bottom line. Like everyone's always looking for an excuse why they didn't make it that month. And it was one of those strange times in history where it didn't matter how hard you showed up. It was a challenge.
Yeah. And what year was your son diagnosed with cancer?
He was diagnosed May 2nd of 2010.
So here you are just leaving the most challenging car market industry we've ever had. You're getting beat up mentally there. And then you find out this news of your son. How old was he at the time?
He was 19 months, and it was a whirlwind. My wife and I were already struggling because of the car business, emotionally, and in our relationship. We were in a really, challenging spot. And all of a sudden, like all the stuff that we were worried about didn't even matter anymore. It was like literally, it was like a light switch flipped. And everything that we had been kind of bickering back and forth on was completely out the window. And all of a sudden now our focus is we're fighting brain cancer, and we're not home. We're living like my dad drove down my camp trailer and we parked it in the alley of Primary Children's Hospital. And that's what we stayed in for roughly 10 months down there.
Okay. So you guys, it was May 2nd. To 2010.
Yep.
This was all happening then. You guys were going to Primary Children's, and at that point you pretty much said all focus on cash. What do we got to figure out? And then trying to flip a car or two on the side while you were working and living out of a pretty much trailer house. Yeah,
exactly. What was funny is when my wife and I, when we were kind of on the rocks before Cash was diagnosed, I was like, even if we're living in a trailer, like as long as we're a family, that's all that matters, and then to fast forward, and there we are, like literally living in a trailer, and it wasn't even a concern at that point. The concern was cash. And we were super fortunate because we have an amazing community up here in Missoula where I live. And our families and friends threw us several fundraisers that summer that made it so we didn't lose our house in 2010. We didn't lose our cars. We had some money in our pocket to buy food. Living out of a trailer at a hospital, you're limited to really like what you're eating and how much you're spending every day, because you're eating fast food 3 meals out of the day, and it adds up quick. We're super fortunate in the fact that my grandparents live in Salt Lake City, so we were still able to drive over to their house and get out of the hospital, but Cash couldn't leave, and so we were always at the hospital. We didn't want to leave him alone. He couldn't talk, and so we just wanted to make sure that there was always someone there with him 24 hours around the clock.
Yeah, I can't. This story blows my mind, and I know you told me a little bit about it, and then Kevin was talking to me about it. And I was like, man, dude, I got to interview this guy. Like, I want to learn more, right? So one of the things I'm so passionate about is, like, life is going to throw wrenches in our spokes, and I hope for the people listening and for myself, I never have to deal with this wrench, right? Like, it's a wrench that I don't wish upon anyone's life, right? But we all going to have wrenches that we have to deal with, and it's going to cause a lot of pain. Like, I could imagine that you had a lot of pain through this process, and maybe even after the process, right? And what I love about you is, like, you went through it, and you're probably still processing to this day, but then you still, life moved forward, right? And you created an amazing career, and you're crushing it with real estate, and you're growing. And so I want to learn from you, Mike, not necessarily about the story of Cash, but like the pain that you had to go through, and how did you deal with it, and what did rock bottom look like for you, and how did you just come to terms and move through with it?
I think from day one, like when we were diagnosed, or we were on our way to Salt Lake, and my dad was driving us, my son was in the back seat, and I was just bawling like a baby. I didn't know what to do. It was just heavy news, getting told your son has a brain tumor. And I remember my son reached up. He was 4 years old, and he touched me on my shoulder, and he was like, "Hey, Dad, like, everything's going to be okay, man. Like, Cash is going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine." And I thought to myself, like, oh, shit, man, like, my 4-year-old's consoling me right now. I need to get my shit together in a big way. This is going to be a journey, and I need to be here for my kids and my wife, and I need to, like, I don't need a kid consoling me right now. I need to really, like, man up and hit this head on. And so, like, the way I looked at the initial battle with cancer was like, I'm going to hit this head on and as strong as possible, and everything happens for a reason. And I don't know what this reason is that Cash has cancer, or why I have to go to sit in Salt Lake City on this crazy journey of fighting cancer. However, I know it's for a reason, and every person I talk to is for a reason. Every conversation I have is for a reason. And I really embraced the initial battle of cancer with that mindset. Like, who am I here to talk to? Like, what is this? What is this? And that's how we really addressed the first year with cancer. It was crazy, the timeline between him getting diagnosed and where I was spiritually. I was going through a lot of life changes. Like I said, I was coming out of the car industry. I knew I wasn't happy in it anymore. I had ended January of 29. I had gotten a horoscope, and in it said, "You're not happy doing what you're doing, and even if you made $1 million, you still wouldn't be happy. Throughout the course of 2010, you're going to find what some call their true destiny." And it just like that's how I hit 2010, was looking for like this greater purpose. Being in the car industry, I had a really bad diet. We were eating fast food 3 meals a day, Mountain Dews and Skittles, and it was hard on my body. And so in 2010, I had changed my diet. I quit eating fast food. I had kicked soda pops. I was on this whole like crazy journey before cancer struck into our lives. And at the same time, it all made sense once it did. And I was reading this book called Celestine Prophecy. And it's
I was just thinking that book, dude. Oh my gosh.
That was my journey, dude. And that's how we hit cancer, was off of this energy exchange and and this whole different lens that I hadn't looked through. And so with that being said, like I tattooed my arm up for cash, because on the good days you really can get complacent and you can really forget about the bad days. And then on the bad days, on like the worst moments, that's when everything makes so much sense. That's when everything is so crystal clear, and you really want to live a better life. It's like coming out of a fog, is the only way I can put it. And then as the days get better, you get more complacent. You know, I remember thinking on some of the worst days with Cash, like, man, why didn't I just get down on the ground and play cars with him? Why didn't I slow down for a minute and just color in the coloring book with him? Like, why didn't I take that time? And then he would get better, and I would get complacent as a parent, as a human again. And I didn't ever want to forget the bad days. And so that was our first year with cancer, man. Was literally just going through those growths and adjusting to all of it.
So if you guys haven't read The Celestine Prophecy, I recommend you go do it. It's an amazing book. I was like obsessed with. I only found it the first time a year ago, October. And I was consumed in that book and this idea of the flow of energy, and everyone has a message for me, and I have a message for other people. And so to me, like, I'm just so grateful that you're sharing this story, because a lot of people could take this story and just like keep it hidden to themselves. And I think that there's some great lessons and some great gems to be taken out of this. So you finished up at the end of 2010, and he was in remission. Is that what was going on in 2011?
Yeah, so we left Salt Lake cancer-free in 2011, February, and we came home. And Cash's first year was very political, because he was one of the first and youngest medical cannabis patients in the United States. And so when we came home, no one knew about that. And I told my mom and dad, I was like, I have to tell Cash's story, because there's so many little kids at Primary Children's that are dying, and they're starving to death. And the fact of the matter is each day 47 kids are diagnosed with cancer, and each day 7 of those kids will pass away while fighting cancer. And out of those 7 kids that die each day, like 95% of them are dying from organ failure and drug overdose from the nausea and pain drugs that they're given. So in 2010, I actually started sneaking cannabis oil into Cash's G-tube, because the doctors told us that we were going to lose him to organ failure. And he had been on TPN and liquid nutrition for over 30 days, which causes organ failure. And they had him on max amounts of all the nausea and pain cocktails that they can give these little kids. And they told us that, hey, we're not fighting cancer anymore. We're basically fighting organ failure and drug overdose because of what the protocol he's on. And so I made this judgment call with my wife, and we started sneaking him this medicine. And over a period of 2 weeks, we were able to wean him off of all of these crazy drugs that he was on. And it was the scariest time in my life, because not only am I worried Cash is going to die, I'm worried that we're going to get caught giving him this medicine, and they're going to take it from him, and then he's going to die. I'm worried that we're going to get caught giving him this medicine. They're going to take his medicine away. They're going to take our healthy son away from us, because in Utah, that was not cool in 2010. And so I had all these worries, but none of them were, I was worried about myself. You know, as a parent, I was willing to do whatever it would take to make Cashy comfortable, to make him feel better, to save him. I would have done I would have took cancer if I could. That wasn't realistic. And so we went through this crazy period where we were sneaking in medicine, and he was getting better. And the doctors weaned him off of all of his drugs that they had him on. They went on to call him the Christmas Miracle, the Boy of Still. It was a crazy journey. And the whole time I wanted to tell all the other parents up there at Primaries, but I was so worried that if I told them and they got back, that they would take it from Cash. And so I felt very selfish that I couldn't share this with these parents. And so when we got home, I told my parents and my wife, like, I got to tell Cash's story, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get in trouble. And they were like, don't do it. Like, don't do it. You beat cancer. Like, just shut up and go back to the real world, dude. Like, you don't need to, like, save everyone. And I just couldn't do it. And so in February of 2011, we ended up doing a news article with our local news station, And that's when I told the news that he was a medical marijuana patient, and it went viral. It was crazy. His story went everywhere. And because of that, like, so many kids' lives have changed. Like, Cash changed the perception of childhood cannabis use, especially like kids that are fighting cancer and epilepsy. He was like this beacon of hope. And at the same time, we were so grateful just to have him home. And like, I thought I was going to go to prison. You know, I was super worried that they were going to come in and take us out. And they didn't. It was the craziest thing. I had a dream that these like Indian warrior chiefs were sitting behind me on this hill, and they were pointing around this ring around the sun, and they're like, don't worry about a thing. You're protected. Like, just don't even worry. And so that's really how we embraced 2011 as a family. We were worried, and at the same time, I felt like I was doing the right thing. I told a story. I felt like other families could do what they needed to do. They could look in other avenues if they wanted to. And that was our 2011. At the same time, in Montana, the law enforcement was changing our laws. And so I had to become an activist. And I went all the way to Washington, D.C. and back protesting, speaking at panels all over the U.S., you know, for advocating for medical cannabis. It was a scary yet fulfilling time in my life, because I felt like I had a destined purpose to like help people out. And we created the Hyde Foundation. And with the foundation, our mission was to create pediatric cancer awareness, financially assist families that were fighting cancer, and to fight cancer with smiles by building out these customized little Tykes cars. We were putting them up with IV poles and One Love stickers. They were the coolest little like beacon of hope. And we donated them all over the U.S. at children's hospitals. I bet you we got 30 of them up at Primary Children's if you go up there. And what I found was, even if it was a minute that a kid was smiling, it was a minute that cancer wasn't winning. And with that, we created this amazing foundation. And at the same time, Cash's cancer came back. And we ended up right back at ground zero, fighting cancer again.
So amazing story, by the way. I had no idea about the medical cannabis use, which just became legal in the state of Utah now.
Yeah.
So awesome for a lot of those patients, right? So here you are, you just get sideswiped with this second like notice, like, dude, the cancer's back. How old is Cash at this time?
You know, Cash was going on, he had just turned 3, so he was 3.5.
Oh my gosh.
3.5.
That's literally how old my youngest daughter is right now, and I could not even fathom what must be going in your mind at this time. A second time, you thought you'd won. Now it just, how did you deal with it the second time mentally?
You know, it was a struggle, man. I thought at some point I thought that I could keep him alive with my positive energy and positive thinking, and I thought we were going to beat cancer, you know, as a family, just by focusing on it and not going negative. And we were trying alternative treatments. However, because of the political climate in Montana and the fact that like cannabis is federally illegal, and a lot of these different treatments are federally illegal. You know, there was one beacon of hope down in Texas called the Brzezinski Clinic, I think. But the amount of money it takes to get there is, you know, almost out of reach for most families. And the feds did some stuff with that as well, where they made them like change their protocols on stuff that was being done. So there wasn't a lot of hope, you know. And in Cash's first battle, he had used high-dose chemo with bone marrow transplants, which is called stem cell rescue. And once you do that, you can't ever do chemo again, because the cancer is mutated and it's kind of immune to the chemo at this point. And so the only other option was radiation. And so you got 2 types of radiation. One is proton radiation, where it's like if you look at like a piece of paper, like, and you say like this is the patient's body, regular radiation will come through and just keep going. And with proton radiation, it'll come through and then it goes out. So you can hopefully not zap their whole body and all their organs. So we were going to do the Huntsman in Utah. However, they didn't do proton. So that's what brought us to California. And, we did our very best trying different alternative treatments to not have to do proton radiation. And at the same time, the doctors are telling you, hey, your kid's going to die if you don't do proton radiation right now. This is the reality of it. And so, it was emotionally draining, and it's like winning the Super Bowl and then getting told that you lost, is the feeling that you're going through. And so it's definitely not the team you want to be on when you're losing. And so, it was hard, but we were prepared for it as far as mentally, because we knew the risk that his cancer was coming back when we got told he was cancer free that spring. And so we just filled up our gym bags. In fact, I don't think I even unloaded my gym bag that summer because I was traveling so much, kind of being an activist, man. And so it was just right to the battlefield. And then in that period, when we got to California, we're at the Loma Linda Hospital. We're living in the Ronald McDonald House, and it was just so devastating to watch how fast that radiation just wiped him out. It just took us back to ground zero. It was crazy watching it. What took chemo 4 months to do to Cash, radiation did in a week. It just completely wiped him out. And I was thankful that we were able to use medical cannabis then for his nausea and pain medication. He was outpatient for pretty much 90% of his battle in California, so he got to come to the Ronald McDonald House every evening. We'd make the best out of it. Every weekend we'd go to a different Hilton Garden Inn, and we'd go to San Diego. And so you're trying to balance things. You got a healthy kid that is being neglected, more or less. You got this sick kid that's getting all the energy and all the attention. And as a parent, you're just trying to balance all this out, which can be a real challenge. In fact, that's one of the directions our foundation has gone to through the years, is we do a lot of focus on the healthy siblings. Because what we found is the healthy siblings are the ones most neglected and most affected by having a sibling with cancer or a debilitating disease. And it's not that the parents don't love them or don't care about them. It's that hey, you don't got cancer, you're not dying. Look out, Tommy's sick. We're going to take care of Tommy right now. And so that's one of the huge things that our foundation does now, is we really embrace the healthy siblings and do our best to get them, out of their funk that they're in, and show them, that there's still stuff to be positive about.
Cool. So also come share your link after this as well for your foundation. Love to hear more about that and check that out. So taking a look now, let's just kind of fast forward. We all kind of know how the story ends. Unfortunately, Cash passed away. After that, how did you deal with it? What was the timeline of kind of your handling that pain and that mourning and that process as a dad?
It took me quite a while. Because you figure, we lost Cash in November 14th of 2012. We lost our house that February. We lost all of our vehicles. We lost everything. And so it was really a matter of just starting over fresh. And I had all this resentment and hate towards law enforcement, towards the governor, I was blaming everybody I could at this point in time. And I was so angry. I even ran for mayor in Missoula in 2013 because the mayor had upset me. And so I had all this anger. I was really spinning in a million directions. I put a lot of my focus into the foundation, because I was like, man, I can't lose this foundation. This is all we have left of Cash. And so I don't think like I ever felt more alone than that first year, because people don't know how to deal with death, especially when it's a child. And so a lot of your friends and family will distance yourself, not because they don't care, but because they just don't know how to handle it and really be there. You know, it's easier to just back off and say, God, like, I don't even want to deal with this right now. So I think as a family, we felt very isolated, very alone. Similar to like when we were fighting cancer, it seemed like everybody keeps moving, life keeps turning. I remember sitting at primaries looking out over Salt Lake City's landscape and watching all the lights going down the freeway. Like the city never sleeps. And I was just stuck in this hospital room. And I felt very anxious, just like, you know what I mean, at the same time, very alone. And so you have that same feeling after you lose someone and everybody else's lives go back to normal. You know, you figure like Prince got a day, right? And like here we are, like Cash is gone and we're still lost in it and everybody's moving. And so it was a hard year. I took off to California with the foundation to help families. We did a lot of reggae runner drop-offs. I just stayed moving for the first 2 years. And I was in California 2015, and I wasn't happy. I missed Montana like greatly. And I looked at my son and I was like, dude, like, let's get the hell out of here, man. Let's go back to Montana. Like, I can't save everyone. I can't help everyone unless I help myself. And I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to get a job selling real estate. Like, that's what I'm going to do. That was just like this thought I had. And so we came home and I signed up for real estate classes. Didn't start till October. And so I was like, man, I'm going bow hunting. And at the same time, I was struggling with the thought of maybe shutting the foundation down. I didn't realize how like challenging it was to raise money and run a nonprofit. I just started one because I thought it was a great idea and I wanted to help and give back. I didn't understand the fundamentals of it. I just knew that I wanted to help. And so I came home and I was really fighting the thought of shutting down the foundation. And it was very emotional for me to think about, like, it felt like I was giving up, and it felt like at the same time I didn't know how to keep going. And I went hunting and I was sitting up on this ridge that I had hunted I don't know how many times in the last 15 years. And I was sitting there just watching the Pintlers, which is a mountain range like similar to the Wasatch down where you guys are. I'm watching hunters and sportsmen, and I just had this thought in my mind that was like sportsmen's against cancer. And I was like, what does that mean? And it was like sportsmen's against cancer. And I was like, wow, I like the way that sounds. And I came home and I was looking at everything, and I redrafted this business plan called the Sportsmen's Against Cancer Banquet, which is a division of the Hyde Foundation. And I think the foundation at the time had about $1,500 in the account. And I was like, man, I'm going to put together this huge Sportsmen's Against Cancer banquet. I'm going to find a kid that's fighting cancer, and I'm going to send him on a guided elk hunt. I'm going to put this whole thing together, and I'm going to fund the whole thing off of selling raffle tickets to items that I don't even have. And my family looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, dude, like you can't buy raffle items. You guys don't have any money. Like, this is impossible. And I was like, no, it's very possible. I just got to do it. And at the same time, I got my real estate license and I hired on with Keller Williams, and I started learning how to cold call, and I went to my first bold, and it was all about just getting 100 contacts a weekend and just calling. And so I started doing bold, and I started making phone calls, and I got onto Montana Outfitter and Guides Association's website, and I uploaded every last guide and outfitter in the state of Montana, and I sent them letters, and I called each and every one of them, telling them, like, hey, I'm Mike Hyde with the Hyde Foundation. We're doing the Sportsmen's Against Cancer grants. I'm looking for an outfitter to participate. And literally every one of them shut us down. No one wanted to play ball because we'd never done it before, right? And so at the same time, I'm selling raffle tickets to items I don't even have. And it just so happened we're getting like within 3 weeks of this big banquet I put together. I have the kid. I've given him a hunt that I don't have yet, and I'm selling all these raffle tickets to items I don't have, and I end up closing on my first transaction like 3 weeks before the event. So I had the money, went and bought all the items that I had been selling raffle tickets for, and I still don't have this hunt, dude. And we're like a week away from our first banquet, and I don't have an outfitter on board. And I'm like, fuck, dude. Like, what do I do? And I was like, I've called everyone. I've sent 300 letters out. The only person I haven't called is the president of MOGA, Montana Outdoors and Guides Association. So I call Mac Minard, who's like the president of MOGA, and I tell him what I'm doing. And he's like, well, shit. He's like, we love doing that. We have the Big Hearts Under the Big Sky program. And he's like, you know what? I got an outfitter for you. And so we're literally like down to the crunch time. He's like, I'll call you back in a day. And he calls me back the next day. He's like, hey, I'm putting you in contact with Russ Kipp. And he owns Montana High Country Lodge and Outfitting. And he's like, and he's going to give Caden his elk hunt guided. And on top of that, his whole family can come with him and stay at the lodge. Sitka's on board, and they're going to donate him all of his clothes, and his brother all of his clothes. They got like head to toe camo, and Cabela's hopped on board, and Cabela's outfitted him with a rifle. And it was like everything just kind of came together, and it was just the power of just like not giving up and just hitting the phones, man. And I was like, wow, like if I wouldn't have went into real estate, if I wouldn't have joined KW, if I wouldn't have went to Bold and learned how to prospect, I'd have lost the foundation in 2016. There wouldn't be any Sportsmen's Against Cancer grants. And now we're getting ready for our 4th annual Sportsmen's Against Cancer banquet this coming June. And, we're super excited about it.
Dude, that's an amazing story. I think what's really cool about that is you put the flag in the hill. I'm going to hold this banquet. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to find a way to make it happen, right? Like this energy, if I create so much value, I will find a way to win. And then my guess is it didn't happen exactly how you thought it would, right? Like,
no.
I mean, you didn't, but it happened. And now here you are 4 years into it, man. So super congratulations on that. So let's fast forward even more. So now you are here in real estate. Tell us about your real estate career, what you're working on in Montana, and where you're going from here.
Real estate has been a huge up and down roller coaster for me. My first year, I didn't go all in with it. I was kind of dabbling in it. I was doing multiple things, and my second year, I went to my first family reunion, 2016, 2017. I went to my first family reunion, and I had all this great energy and ideas, and I was really going to implement all this stuff and get super focused. And it was like the universe just threw every challenge my way that it could. So I think 2017, I ended up working 3.5 months out of the whole year. I still had a great year, nothing worth bragging about. But I think looking back at last year, I at least had the vision of what I wanted to do. And then like we had every obstacle out there. We lived in the forest last year, and our forest caught on fire. And it was like all of August was firefighting. I mean, literally the fire was within 100 feet of the house. And so, and it went from like July 16th till September, and so I let that affect my ability to prospect, and then last November, day after Thanksgiving, I broke my back, four-wheeling. We were going elk hunting. I had an accident. I took a four-wheeler off the trailer backwards, and I crushed my T12 in my spine, almost paralyzed myself. And like, I remember I'm at the hospital. I look at my wife, and I had so much energy, and I had so many things I wanted to do, and I almost took myself out of the game. And I looked at my wife, and I was like, man, I need you to order me a hospital bed. I need you to grab my stand-up desk, flip it around in my office, get the hospital bed delivered in there. As soon as I can get out of here, I need to get on the phone, and I got to keep dialing. I got to just keep calling. And so I got out of I was in the hospital like 5 days. They get me to the house onto my hospital bed. I put my headset on, and I just started jamming, dude. I just kept prospecting, setting appointments. I remember I had my assistant come pick me up. because I could walk, but I had this crazy back brace on. And I tried going on a couple listing appointments. It wasn't good. I think these clients are like, man, are you gonna make it to like even sell my house? And you show up with like a cane, and so I really got focused in my database, and at the same time, I was still just a prospecting machine. I got to the point where I was doing like 200 contacts a week, and I just felt like I wasn't happy doing it like that. And so I really started looking at how I wanted to change the way I prospected, because I know a lot of people here in town. And so I came up with a new strategy on how I like to prospect this year. And it really changed the way that I do business. And like being part of your guys' prospecting alliance was huge, because every day I would just sit there and listen to your message and your energy. And I really fed off of that. And I just created like all these huge goals this year. And I've literally knocked every one of them out of the park, including being on your podcast today. This was one of my goals, and my goal. But
Dude,
man,
no way.
I'm like, I want to be on Colton's podcast this year. I know I'm going to.
I had no idea, dude. I literally had no idea that was your goal. I'm so freaking stoked.
Yeah, it's just like every like goal I've had this year, I've just crushed it, and I just stayed positive, and I've done the work to get there. All the way down to joining on with BTG. I was an independent agent, and I never wanted to join any teams because a lot of teams out there are just completely out of whack. I talked with Brandon several times about BTG. I done his 8 steps class, which is an amazing class. I'll even share you guys the 8-step process. It's amazing for building your sphere and your database. And he offered me an opportunity to help him put an expansion team up here in Missoula, Montana. And I was like, man, like it's an amazing opportunity. The BTG culture it's a collaborative team. So as an independent agent, like I was able to plug in and still be able to self-brand, still be able to do my own listings, basically still be able to do everything that I was already doing, but leverage out all the back end that I didn't want to do. I was going to have to get an admin and an assistant and all this crazy stuff. And I didn't want to do all that. Like I honestly, I didn't want to be a full-on team, like Mike Hyde team, And so I was able to plug into BTG and with it, really bring another level of customer service to my clients and up my production even more. And so literally this year has been like an amazing year of growth, of learning, of really just setting huge goals and just focusing on the work. I think before I've always set big goals. However, I never created the uphill habits to get them. So it's like, yeah, you can make a huge goal, but if you have a bunch of little downhill habits each day, you're never going to hit them. And I was at Mega Camp in Austin, and John Maxwell was a speaker there this year, and he's amazing. He wrote like the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and he was talking about goals and having uphill goals and building uphill habits. And I really looked at it and I was like, wow, that's what 2018 was for me. Is I created huge goals, but I really threw on a bunch of uphill habits along the way so I could actually hit them. And like, this is my first year being like 100% sober. I quit drinking in May. I was having liver issues. When I broke my back, it messed up my thyroid, it messed up my liver. And so I had to make this choice. Like, I need to quit drinking. I was a cannabis user since I was like 14. I love smoking cannabis, loved it. Have nothing against it. However, if I smoked cannabis during the daytime, it made me super tired. And before, it would wire me out. I'd get a bunch of energy, or at least I thought I did, and I'd go and create a bunch of chaos. And so like after my thyroid went out, if I smoked during the daytime, I would get super like lethargically tired. And so I had to quit smoking during the daytime. And then if I smoked at nighttime, it was like it would wire me to the point where I couldn't go to sleep. And so I made this decision. I was like, well, God, it's making me super tired. It's making me so I can't sleep. I have all these huge goals. Like, I need to eliminate this out of my life. And I did. And like, I thought I was going to have like this period of where I was like not happy or whatever. And really, like, each day I just felt better and better and better. And like, here I am now. I just went through my son's memorial, 100% sober. able to really process the grief in a direction I haven't done since I lost him. I think I really like numbed my feelings out and didn't really feel a lot of the stuff that I was supposed to. And I didn't realize it all the way until I really became clear-headed. And I went down on this retreat this summer to Maine. A foundation reached out to us, and they do a bereaved siblings retreat in Maine. And they were like, hey, we want your family to come out and spend 4 days with us. And it's called Rhett's Roots, amazing foundation. And so they flew us out to Maine, and we were there with 4 other families that have lost their kids to cancer. And we were able to sit there and tell our stories. And I remember I was day one, like I was like, yeah, like I've been in this for 6 years. I feel like I'm okay. You know what I mean? And I get there, and we're all in the like conversation circle, and I got like 2 words into Cash's story, and I just broke down crying. Like I was sobbing like a baby, and I figured I was way further healed than what I was, and what I realized was I had put all this stuff in front of me to keep my wheels turning, and was using substances to numb myself, and I really have a long ways to go in the healing process. And I feel like now I'm doing it in a way that's a lot healthier and a lot more productive. And so I'm just super thankful that we have the foundation. We have the ability to help other families fighting cancer. Like this year will be the first year we're not going to do anything for Christmas. Normally we do a huge toy drive for primary children's. We cook dinner at the Ronald McDonald House. We do all this stuff. And this year I decided that we're not going to do anything besides give all that energy and love to our kids. Because everything you say yes to, you're saying no to other things. And I've said no to my own kids so many years in a row now that I'm like, you know what, this year we're just going to focus on you guys. And we're still going to help families out, but we're not doing any toy drives. We're not doing anything besides focusing on the family.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your story, man. And I'm super glad you threw in that last bit about, dealing with substances. For the longest time, I used marijuana every single day for 10 years. A lot of people didn't even know about it. It gets so easy to use weed now with the vape pens and the edibles. And I have this theory that at one time my vibration was so low that it actually did feel great, euphoric to do that. But as I continued with these, as you called them, uphill habits through my uphill climb, then there was a day that I was using it and it actually lowered my vibration. And I actually felt worse and worse using the substances until one day, earlier this year, I had gone through with a grandfather ceremony with the Native American tribe, and my life's never been the same since. And I looked back and it was like, dude, all of a sudden I wasn't using. It wasn't like I'm done. It's like I just wasn't there all of a sudden. I wasn't getting hammered. And you bring up mega camp. My biggest memories of mega camp were being fucking wasted till 5 a.m. on 6th Street. Like that's what I remember most, yeah. Going to those events, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't dealing with my pain. Dealing with the Mastermind, and we took him through a process called holotropic breath work or transformational breathing. Just call and ask him his experience, and I think it would even help you heal even more. So I'm probably going to be doing a session here in the next month or 2. I'll give you a heads up if you want to come down from Montana and be involved with it. Just call Kevin. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. But appreciate you being here, man. I got to run. I got to go to my next conversation. But thank you so much. People, get in touch with him. Come back and drop a link or information about your foundation. I'd love to learn more about that. And then if you want to get in touch with him, make sure to contact him on Facebook. Reach out to him. And just, dude, one piece of advice you want to give people, put it out there. Let's hear it.
If I had any piece of advice, is just to really self-evaluate where you're at in life and ask yourself where you want to be in 5 years from now, and understand that we all have the ability to get to wherever we want to be in a 5-year span, as long as we create the habits to get there. So no matter where you're at in life, it doesn't matter where you're at emotionally, financially, physically. If you can create that goal, and I would suggest that you make goals so big that people think you're crazy and doubt them, because that's when you know you're on track. And then just create every little habit that you can to get you to those goals, and you can do it. So just create those goals and those habits that will follow them, and you're gonna hit it home.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. I'll be in contact with you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, bro.